Welcome to my channel. Subscribe, listen, and enjoy my stories every day. It was a crisp autumn morning when the world as I knew it began to unravel. The kind of day where the sun promises more warmth than it delivers. I stood in the kitchen, the scent of freshly brewed coffee mingling with the autumn air seeping through the window. Marie, my wife of 7 years, busied herself at the counter, her back to me, her phone buzzing incessantly. "Who's that texting you so early?" I asked, pouring myself a cup of coffee. "It's just Claire from work. Lots of projects to wrap up," she replied, her voice a bit too cheerful. I nodded, though her response did little to ease the knot forming in my stomach. Lately, Marie had been distant, her smiles more forced, her excuses more frequent. I tried to shake off the unease as I joined her at the table. "I need my passport today." "Thought I'd finally renew it," I mentioned casually, reaching for the bread. Marie froze, her hand hovering over her phone. "Your passport?" "Oh, I think I saw it in the study, somewhere," she stammered, avoiding my gaze. Something about her tone set off alarm bells in my mind. I decided to search for the passport myself. What I found, or rather, didn't find, in the study, set the stage for the cataclysm that would soon follow. My passport was nowhere. Worse still, I stumbled upon opened mail, credit card statements under my name, loans I never took out, amounts that made my head spin. "Marie!" I called out, my voice echoing with a mix of confusion and dread. She appeared at the doorway, her face pale, a mask of feigned ignorance. "What's all this about?" I demanded, holding up the statements. I can explain," she faltered, her eyes darting to the door, then back to me. But before she could, her phone buzzed again, a message lighting up the screen so briefly I almost missed it. "Can't wait to see you in Paris, love." The pieces clicked into a horrendous puzzle. The distant behavior, the secretive texts, the missing passport, and now, the loans. Rage mingled with heartbreak as I confronted her with the message. "Who is this? What's going on, Marie?" Tears streamed down her cheeks, her usual composure shattered. "I'm sorry, I never meant for you to find out this way." But her apology was cut short by my sharp intake of breath. A realization so sudden and sharp it felt like a physical blow. She was leaving me, and she was leaving me ruined. In the days that followed, my initial shock morphed into a cold, calculated anger. I refused to be a victim of her deceit. I would reclaim my life and my finances, no matter what it took. With the help of a lawyer, I began to untangle the web of loans and deceit she had woven. I filed for divorce, exposing her actions, ensuring that her betrayal would not go unpunished. As she boarded a plane to Paris with her lover, a plan began to form in my mind, a plan not just for retribution but for rebuilding the life she tried to steal from me. This was just the beginning. I would not rest until justice, my justice, was served. And Marie? She would learn that betrayal comes at a price. As the chapter closed, the Parisian sun that beckoned a new life for Marie cast long shadows over the life I was determined to rebuild. The game was just beginning. The sting of betrayal sharpened my focus, turning grief into action. As Marie's plane lifted off, carrying her towards a new life in Paris, I was already deep in the throes of planning my response. The first step was securing my financial safety from her fraudulent activities. I arranged a meeting with my bank manager, Mr. Thompson, a stout man with a penchant for meticulous details. His office, lined with thick books and financial statements, felt like the command center of my counterattack. "Mr. Thompson, it appears my wife has taken out loans in my name. I need to secure my accounts immediately," I explained, sliding the fraudulent statements across his desk. He adjusted his glasses, reviewing the documents with a furrowed brow. "This is quite serious, Mr. Jenkins. We'll need to freeze these accounts and begin an investigation right away." "Thank you. I'd also like to explore the legal avenues to protect myself and recover these funds, I added, determination stealing my voice. I recommend you speak with a fraud specialist. We can refer you to someone reputable. Protecting your assets is our priority, Mr. Thompson assured, his tone both professional and sympathetic. Armed with advice and a plan, I left the bank feeling a semblance of control returning. But financial security was just one piece of the puzzle. I needed more information, and for that, I turned to Marie's phone, which she had carelessly left behind in her haste. The device was a goldmine of betrayal. Messages, emails, pictures, all weaving a sordid tapestry of her affair. One name appeared repeatedly, Anton. Her lover, no doubt. With each message, my resolve hardened. Anton was about to discover that his secret Paris rendezvous would cost him dearly. I enlisted the help of a private investigator, a discreet professional known for unraveling the most tangled secrets. I need everything you can find on this man, I instructed, handing over the printouts of the messages and Anton's contact details. Understood, Mr. Jenkins. I'll dig deep. It won't take long to uncover his skeletons, the investigator promised with a confident nod. As the investigator worked his channels, I planned the next phase of my revenge. Marie's social standing was her pride, her glittering social events, her parade of high society friends. I drafted a letter, not just any letter, but a detailed exposition of her deeds, her betrayal, her duplicity. This letter, once sent to her closest circle, would ensure that her return to this city would be to whispers and scorn, not open arms. Each action, each decision, felt like a chess move in a high-stakes game. But unlike chess, this game had no rules. It was a game dictated by the cold desire for retribution. As the sun set, casting long shadows across my study, I leaned back in my chair. The darkness outside mirrored the darkness that the next chapter of this saga would surely bring. But in that darkness, I found a grim sort of satisfaction. Marie had started this game with her betrayal, but I would be the one to end it. My revenge had only just begun. The clatter of my keyboard punctuated the silence of my home office as I drafted the final lines of the exposé on Marie. Each word was a nail in the coffin of her social facade. With a heavy yet steady hand, I attached her portrait, a smiling image from last year's gala, and appended a note detailing her betrayal and deceit. The digital whistle of an email sent echoed through the room, marking the dispatch of her ruin to every contact in our joint address book. As the night deepened, the ping of my phone disrupted the silence. It was the private investigator. I have information on Anton, he said, his voice low and urgent. He's more than just a lover. He's involved in some shady business deals here and in Paris. Seems your wife picked an interesting partner. Interesting or not, I want every detail. And I want his business partners to know exactly who they're dealing with, I responded, the edges of my plan sharpening with this new information. Consider it done. I'll compile the reports and send them over by morning, the investigator assured before hanging up. Sleep eluded me as I anticipated the next phase of my strategy. By sunrise, I was sitting in my car outside a familiar cafe, where I used to meet Marie for brunch on simpler, happier days. Today, I was here to meet someone else, Claire, Marie's colleague and confidant. She approached my car, her eyes wary, a scarf pulled tight against the morning chill. "Why did you want to see me?" Claire asked as she slid into the passenger seat, her voice tinged with suspicion. "It's about Marie. There are things you need to know," I began, handing her a copy of the letter I'd sent out last night. Her eyes widened as she scanned the contents. "I can't believe this." "Are you sure?" she stammered, her initial doubt fading into concern. "Absolutely. And there's more. She's left the country with someone who could get her into serious trouble," I added, letting the gravity of the situation sink in. Claire shook her head, disbelief etched across her face. "What do you need from me?" Information. Anything that could help me understand why she did this. And if you know anything about her plans, or about Anton. She nodded slowly, her loyalty to Marie crumbling under the weight of her actions. I'll help you. But only because I hate being lied to. With Claire's cooperation secured, I returned home to find an email from the private investigator. The report was thorough, detailing Anton's involvement in dubious financial transactions and questionable company. This was the leverage I needed. Forwarding this information to Anton's contacts would not only isolate him but also sever any ties Marie might hope to use in her new life. As the digital dossier dispatched to various corners of Anton's world, I felt a chill that wasn't from the autumn air. This was more than retribution, it was a complete dismantling of the life Marie had chosen over ours. The phone rang again later that day. It was Claire, her voice urgent. Marie's trying to come back. She's scared, says things are unraveling in Paris. She's asking for my help. A bitter smile crossed my lips. Tell her you'll think about it. And keep me updated. Hanging up, I gazed out the window. Marie was coming back, but she was returning to a world that no longer welcomed her. As the leaves fell outside, so too did the remnants of my old life, making room for the renewal that only the harshest of autumns could bring. The day Marie returned was draped in a fitting gloom, the sky a tapestry of dark clouds as if mourning the end of an era. I stood by the window, watching as her taxi pulled up to the curb. Her figure, once so familiar and dear, now seemed foreign and fraught with the betrayal she had woven into our lives. As she approached the front door, her steps hesitant, I prepared myself for the final confrontation. The doorbell rang, a forlorn echo through the empty halls of our once shared home. I opened the door, my expression unreadable. Marie, I greeted coldly. James, she began, her eyes searching mine for any sign of the love that had once bound us. Save it. You're only back because your plans fell apart, not out of any remorse, I interrupted sharply, stepping aside to let her in, not out of courtesy but to finalize this charade. She entered, her gaze darting around the familiar surroundings, perhaps seeking solace or perhaps reminiscing about what she had forsaken. I made a mistake, James. I'm so sorry, she offered weakly. A mistake. Marie, you orchestrated a betrayal that nearly ruined me. There's no place for you here anymore, I retorted, my voice firm, devoid of the warmth she once knew. As she struggled to formulate a response, I led her into the living room where a large envelope lay on the coffee table. What's this? She inquired, a trace of fear in her voice. Your final act, I said as she opened the envelope to find photographs and documents spilled out, evidence of her infidelity, her deceit, and the financial ruin she attempted to cause. How did you? I know everything, Marie. About Anton, the loans, your escape to Paris, I cut her off, watching as the color drained from her face. And so does everyone else. Your friends, your family, your precious social circle. Her hands trembled as she absorbed the impact of her exposed life. James, please, I have nothing left, she whispered, the realization of her isolation dawning on her. That was your doing, not mine. You chose this path, I stated icily. I'll leave, she said quickly, a desperate edge to her voice. I'll leave everything behind. Just, please, let me go. Leaving is the only thing you seem to do right, I remarked as she gathered a few belongings in a haste, her every move watched by the cold eyes of the man she once claimed to love. Marie paused at the door, her posture defeated. Will I ever see you again, James? She asked, a flicker of hope perhaps still burning in her heart. Goodbye, Marie, was all I offered, a final severance of any ties that remained. With that, she stepped out into the bleak day, the door closing firmly behind her. As the sound of her departing car faded, a profound silence settled over the house. I sat down, the weight of the past months settling in. The justice I had sought was cold, and it did not bring satisfaction, only a stark recognition of what had been lost and what could never be regained. But in this ending, I found a beginning. Free from deception, free from the shadow of betrayal, I could now rebuild. I could forge a future defined not by the pain of the past but by the lessons it taught. As the storm outside began to clear, so too did my vision for the future. A future where trust might once again find a place, and where betrayal would no longer darken my doorstep. The final act of this drama was complete, and the curtain fell on a scene of solemn resolution.